It's time for another Dice Tower review with Tim Jennette.
Hey everyone, Tim Jennette, the Metal Meeple here, and in this video we're taking a look at CrossTalk. This is published by Nauvoo Games in 2017. It's for 4 to 8 players. It plays more than that. You're just basically splitting everybody into teams. It takes about 30 minutes, and it's designed by Brett Sobel and Seth Van Orden. Now, CrossTalk is basically a game where you're going to have a clue giver on both teams, and they're going to come up with one word. There's a bunch of cards in the game that you select and select one of the words, and it's kind of like your password, and everybody's trying to guess what that is. Except the caveat being that Team A or Team Black will give a public clue, and Team Blue gets to guess first, and then vice versa. So then Team Blue's clue giver has to give a public clue, and then Team Black will actually make their guess. So it's this back and forth, but each time the other team has to give away something, but not try to give away too much. So let me show you the components and how it plays, and we'll come back and I'll tell you what I think. Setup for CrossTalk is incredibly simple. You simply put this board in the middle of the table. You form into 2 teams, blue and black. The black team and blue team are both going to receive a couple of chat boards. They can write whatever they want on these. These are all dry erase. Everything in the game pretty much is. These are to communicate within your team without saying things out loud and such. You also get colored markers for your team. You get multiple for each team. Then you're going to have some private boards that the clue givers are going to get. So each round, which might consist of multiple guesses, are going to have a clue giver on one side of the table for each team. All the teammates for both teams are on the opposite side of the table. So in this case, these private boards, the clue givers are going to use, but we're going to do that in just a second. You're going to draw a card from this massive deck of cards. They are double-sided, so there's 12 on each card, so you can see how many different words are in this game. Now, the clue givers from both teams are going to look at this together and decide which clue, or not clue, yeah, which word they want to use for this round. So in this case, they can decide together, or they can simply roll a die if they can't make a decision. And let's go with Twilight, because why not? So, knowing that the word is Twilight, the black team says, you know what, let's do, you can only write down one word as a clue. You can only guess as, or write down public clues as one word. I just got marker all over myself. Anyway, so the black team's going to say sparkle. They're going to hand this in secret to their team. Blue team is going to say, you know what, movie. And he's going to hand that to his team as well. Then you're pretty much ready to begin. Now, the first round of the game is going to be random. Subsequent rounds, it's whatever team did not score gets to pick who starts first, basically. So let's say we start with the blue team given a public clue. The blue team is going to make up a public clue. The clue giver is going to write one down. So say they put vampire. Vampire. Now, since the blue team gave a public clue, it is the black team's first turn to guess. They are going to look at their private clue, sparkle, vampire, and if for some reason they cannot come to the conclusion that this is Twilight, I feel bad for them. But let's say they talk about it for a minute, they write on their chat boards, draw some pictures, you know, they're like, I don't know. Anyway, once they have decided to give an official answer, there is a timer in the game if you want to use that as well. They're going to give an official answer. Let's just say they say Dracula for some reason, right? We like to write down the guess here, so Dracula. Unfortunately, that is wrong, and now it is the black team's turn to give a public clue. Now let's say they write down terrible. Now the blue team actually gets to make a guess, so using all the blue team stuff, we've got movie, vampire. It's terrible. It's a terrible movie, right? About vampires, and it's not Dracula because that's what they guessed. You know what? We're going to say Twilight. In that case, they would end the round immediately and score a point. Otherwise, it's going to continue to go back and forth, back and forth. The last round, you do not write down a public clue. You simply just get another guess. And that's, for the most part, the game, other than each team does get a special little clue board here that after their team guesses or passes on any round, the clue giver can mark this up a bit and hand it to them in secret. You can only do this once per word, basically, or once per time you're going through all these guesses and stuff. Every time somebody's going for a point, basically. That didn't make any sense, but hopefully it did. Anyway, you have a legend down here on what type of markings you can do. So you can see up here, this is the black clues. This is referencing the blue guesses, blue clues and black guesses. They're all labeled on the board up here. So you can say, you know what, combine this, or I'm sorry, emphasis on this. We really mean this, or, the opposite of this, or the synonym of this, or combine these two here partially on this, or whatever. Or do not, maybe for instance, if I said movie and I really didn't mean it or something, whatever. You can mark this up and hand it to them. Now, if you do this too soon, you may not have enough information to go on, but if it keeps going and keeps going, then you can mark this up and give them a lot of information to gather with. And that's a pretty cool addition to the game. Now, before I move on to what I think about the game, oh, by the way, you play until one team gets 5 points, or really you can play to whatever set determined number that you want. Since this is kind of more of a party game, people will just sit there and play and play and play. Each time a point has been given, you switch the clue givers up. So everybody on your turn should eventually be the clue giver. Anyway, there are a few things I'm going to note about this game. I'm not going to show you all kinds of these cards, but I will show you a few because I'm going to reference these in my thoughts. One, some of these are, like obviously celebrities and pop culture and books and movies and things like that. But there's a lot of phrases as well. So by the skin of my teeth, or back to square one, you can see too tired to think straight, keep your eyes peeled. So some of these are a little bit difficult to gather, but that it is okay for the most part because the clue givers do get to select this. But sometimes they don't want any of the other stuff, and the die gets rolled, and say it's rolled to a 4 by the skin of my teeth. These are quite difficult to do. Maybe you can decide to roll again or something. But anyway, just wanted to point that out. Again, first team to get 5 points is the winner. And there you go. That is CrossTalk. As a disclaimer, I will say that I received this as a review copy from Nauvoo Games, so keep that in mind. The first thing I will say is, much like Codenames, which you might already be seeing the similarities between the two, I do not like playing this game with 4 players. And the reason, it's not that the game doesn't work, it's just that it doesn't work for me. In a 4-player game, you have one person on each team being the clue giver and one person actually making the guesses. There is zero communication other than the clue giver being able to give that private clue and then have that hint board that he's going to mark up for that player. So that just doesn't do it for me. It's nice that it plays with 4 if you want that silent style play, but I like the fact that you're talking to each other and you're trying to listen in on what the other people might, or the other team might slip up and say out loud without using their chat boards. That's where I find the most fun. I actually personally don't like being the clue giver as much, although it's not bad because it's not like you're the clue giver for the entire game. It does rotate in and out, and I like that as well. So the game plays for me best at 6, although past that it's pretty much an even number, so 8, 10, 12. Unless you have younger kids or something like that playing, they can handicap one of the teams. The components are amazing. I mean, everything about this game's components are great. I mean, the fact that all the player boards have the little peel off, oh man, that's, first off, in electronics, that's the most satisfying thing to me, is peeling off the film off the displays of like different phones and monitors and stuff like that. Everything in this game was covered in it. I had a blast. I didn't even need to play the game at that point. It was an A+. But, it comes with plenty of markers. It comes with an enormous amount of cards for this game. I mean, the replayability is definitely here. And I guess really you don't even need the cards if you wanted to just talk to the clue givers and kind of think of something fun to do. So, speaking of the cards, though, as I showed you at the end of that, the summary video or the overview video, there are some cards with words and phrases specifically that are incredibly difficult. Like, it baffles me that some play groups would be able to guess these. Now, I guess the caveat, or the devil's advocate to that is, both the clue givers have to decide to play that word, but or phrase, but at the same time, sometimes the die roll will put in favor of that phrase, and it just kind of, And then on the flip side, sometimes the words are so easy that it's hard to give away any clues because almost everything will give it away. So it's kind of one of those games where it works pretty well, but then sometimes you'll have that one round where you're like, well, that was lame. Or you'll have that one round where you're like, what are they talking about? And at the end, you're like, there's zero chance I would have ever guessed that. So otherwise, it does have quite a bit of, you know, celebrities and things like that. I don't really worry so much as far as like timeliness to it, or timeness to it. Like, you know, some trivia games and things like that, like as the audience gets older, then maybe the, you know, the newer people playing this game might be like, who are these people? You know, there's a couple of things like that, but again, the clue givers get to pick what they're actually going to be using for that round, so it's not a big deal. Anyway, that's pretty much my thoughts on the game, other than the hint boards. The hint boards are amazing. The hint boards take the game to a next level, because in those very hard situations, or if you have like a crazy brainiac team, you know, if you're playing like championship crosstalk, the hint boards are neat because you can throw the opponent off. You can be like, huh, you know what? I'm going to do all this stuff and kind of say, no, don't go with that or whatever. But for most people who aren't that experienced or advanced, they're going to use it to try to sway their team in the right direction because they've gotten off track. So I really like the hint boards. I do like that they're limited on how you can mark those up, and you can't just like put a bunch of extra words on there and such. So fine game for me. For the most part, if you're wondering how I compare this to Codenames, I wasn't a massive fan of Codenames just because the requirements on the teams, and this kind of sits in the same boat. Although I might like this one better when you get the fun words that are kind of middle of the road, or fun, or phrases or movie titles and things like that, where, you know, the guesses go back and forth a few turns, and, you know, people actually end up getting them based on the clues. If it goes too long and no one ever gets it, that's not as fun. And if it's guessed like the first guess, that actually kind of kills the gameplay for me. But otherwise, most of the time it's in a good direction, and I enjoy the game pretty much. It's just a shame that you have to have like 2 teams. I love team games, except you always, in this case, need 6 players for me to make it really fun. So if it sounds interesting, I definitely recommend it. Navi Games puts out lots of cool stuff so far, so I'm looking forward to what they got next. If you have any questions, feel free to post below. Send me an email at timjennette@gmail.com. Follow me on social media at the handle below, or check out my podcast called Meeple Core. And until next time, keep on rocking and rolling dice.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at coolstuffinc.com.